Well, guys, welcome back to another In the Rough podcast with myself and Sehab. Tom can't join us this week because he's off gallivanting around doing something which he hasn't disclosed to us, but I'm sure he'll update us all as to the magic soon. But obviously, it's been a busy week. Obviously, with the Olympics going on, the men's tournament ran into a close on the weekend, and the women's is in full swing at the moment and looking very exciting, but very hot. So interesting going on there. But then we'll also look at the build up to the Ryder Cup, all of the kind of preparations around that, and the kind of the release of the new calendar and fixtures for the upcoming season as well, which has thrown lots of different elements in there, which are quite interesting. But we'll kick off obviously with the men's side of the tournament for the Olympics last week. Sehab was, I guess, in my head was actually very good because it was all very closely contested and anyone could have had it.
Yeah, I think going into it, there was a lot of speculation of, it's only going to be the guys that are the top end of the PGA Tour. They're going to have a chance to compete, and that it most likely would be a US victory. It was a US victory, but not necessarily from the person we were expecting,
no.
I dare say. And, I think a lot of the guys expected, there were a lot of expected competition and it delivered. There was a lot of storylines around it. I'll be honest, I don't think so. I've been watching my Olympics through BBC Sport. Mm-hmm. There wasn't too much coverage of golf on there, so I had to find other ways to give it a watch. But I think it's been interesting. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I think definitely interesting. I think from a personal perspective, nice to see players like McElroy and stuff actually giving it a go after being very. He was being very, whatever word you want to use for it, he wasn't being very nice about the whole tournament and the build-up for it beforehand. He clearly didn't want to go and was doing it more out of a necessity rather than an actual want. But obviously, as he got through it, it turned out he was loving it. He's desperate to go back again, which was really good to see. And obviously other players doing well, like Fleetwood Casey gave it a good go for the UK guys as well. My only niggle with it, and I think possibly a way to make it a bit more interesting is maybe doing it in a different format, because I think it'd be no coverage is because it's 10 hours a day spread over 4 days. Yeah,
it would have been really cool to see the team playoff format sort of thing. The one that I absolutely like a Dell match play.
Yeah, with nations.
I think. Yeah, I think because the fact you've got two guys there representing the teams anyway.
Yeah,
do a match play, in that sort of scenario, and plus that way you have a clear run in for, that's like the one time, the argument that Tom had of, it makes the final day so boring. Well, you're representing your country and you're going for a gold medal. That's in play.
Yeah,
so
agreed. I think that's the time it could work well. Like I heard someone on the radio compare it to the boxing. They said with boxing, country versus country versus, they don't just throw them all in the ring and let them beat each other up. You probably get more views, but you break it down into countries, and I think for an Olympic event that works better because the whole thing about Olympics is coverage, people wanting to watch, but when it's on for 12 hours a day over 4 days, it's not really feasible and it's not going to get the coverage, so it's a bit of a waste.
And all the shows, whether that's CBS showing it in America or BBC in the UK or anywhere around the world, they're not going to, because in golf, storylines develop across the whole day. You look at gymnastics where you have an athlete falling off a bar, that's the gold medal gone right then and there. It doesn't necessarily happen, so you need to be creative with how you do it. So I think it'd be... Yeah. I'd want to see something like that develop in the future.
Yeah,
where they're being pitted against each other more. So you manage to do it in every other sport. I think it'd be really cool to see it in golf as well. I just think it'd be really, really cool. It'd be like a mini Ryder Cup, wouldn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, I think they need to, because I think obviously golf is relatively new into what's only its second Olympics now, is it, or a third?
Yeah, I think so.
And it's probably one of the ones that's been a bit pushed to the side. I think for that reason, it's not I think the whole thing about the Olympics is people enjoy watching sports you would never normally watch because it's entertaining. Because people that aren't watching golf, we're not going to watch golf because it's at the Olympics. It was no more entertaining than it normally is.
Yeah, there's no difference. There's nothing. I think which is interesting actually. An upcoming event with the Barracuda event where the scoring convention is reversed. So for obviously everyone that doesn't know about it, you instead of getting -1 for a birdie, you get +3 for a birdie. You get I think it's -1 for a bogey, -3 for a double bogey, and plus.
Yeah.
So the more positive points at the end of the day wins, but you get rewarded more for going for it. So it encourages players to go for a birdie, go for an eagle or for an albatross even. Encourages players to take that risk rather than playing conservatively for the par. Par gets you nothing.
Yeah.
So I think something like that, bring that sort of convention into it, bring a team format into it, like a knockout sort of thing, that would be really cool as to how that could be developed. And I think any way you can find a way to shorten it in this instance, you're going to get more audience into golf, and you're going to increase, the number of people who want to go and pick it up after the Olympics.
Yeah, no, I think that whole thing about shortening it is the big one. I think why don't they do why not throw in like a mixed pairings event? Why not throw in?
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, like stuff that you would never get outside of that, and that would actually make people want to tune into Olympics because it's the only place you'd see something like that. I think.
Yeah, I'd love to see. I'd love to see mixed events. Because obviously, it's so rare that the women get the exact same spotlight.
Yeah.
As well, because it works very nicely with mixed doubles and in tennis and so in other sports as well. You had the mixed event in even the triathlon this year.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very good. You had to be very tactical about where you implemented your players, as it were.
Yeah.
So with a mixed event, could it be a case of? I mean, I was almost be inclined to say, like a Texas scramble sort of thing, where you have to alternate who hits off the tee.
Yeah, or like you can do certain ones, can't you? Where you can only use X person's tee shot 5 times in a round, and so on and so. I just think different things that mix it up, and I think if you do that, you could do that over a 2-round tournament, which then means you could fit 2 golf formats into the same time frame.
So you can have a mixed doubles going on at the same time.
Yeah.
And you can have a like a normal Ryder Cup sort of thing where one against one. I think in the Olympics it's probably best, if we scrap the normal PGA thing or the European Tour golf where we spread it out across 4 days and do that, because no other sport do you do that in at the Olympics. So I think it'd be really cool to see how golf can adapt. I'd hope that they think of stuff like this. Because at the moment I doubt the USPGA and the Olympics organising the IOC is watching our little podcast. Well, I hope they can think of these ideas.
Well, it sounds not to be like condescending towards any other sport, but probably from all the sports bar football in the Olympics, golf is probably the best funded. By that I mean because of the money in it, whereas a lot of the other sports aren't as need the funding, so naturally they have more focus. Like the GB team doesn't need to put any money into golf, for example. So there's naturally less focus on it. So I think it probably needs to come from a player committee level and so on to actually try and implement any change. And I think it would probably encourage more players to go play, because especially when you're having the Olympics prior to like the Ryder Cup and the FedEx Cup and big tournaments, why risk it for the same? Like if it was something different, you would go do it.
I don't think anyone's thinking of injury necessarily in golf, because unless you're Brooks or unless you're Tiger, it's very rare that you're going to get injured out on the golf course like that. But the point being is every single person that's gone out on to the Olympics, whether that's the US athletes, the GB athletes, or the Norwegians, or anyone, what they've said about is that they've absolutely loved the atmosphere in terms of mixing with other athletes, mixing with guys that they just wouldn't talk to. I think what was it? JT said that they were sat with Steve Kerr and Pop, and they would talk about how big fans they are of the sport, and that's just something you wouldn't normally associate so much. So I think that's the thing that needs to be taken out of it.
But there's less pressure from them as on a commercial endorsement perspective as well. They're not worried about wearing their brands, promoting certain clubs. That there's all of that's alleviated, so it's quite interesting to see a much more. And I think for the likes of Rory, that probably helps massively. That's a massive weight off, and
he had a good performance. No, he had a good showing. He looked more like himself.
He hit a below par first round for the first time in as long as I can ever remember.
Okay, unlike himself in that regard, but yeah, no, I think there are a lot of good positives to take from all the guys that went there. And what was really good to see as well was to see the fact of we had silver and bronze go to nations that we wouldn't consider major.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, South Africa has history, but obviously it's just fact that it's history.
Yeah.
But it's good to see that. Serbia, you don't see too many guys coming out of Serbia, so it's good to see them, in the medal spot. But it shows the strength of the game around the world, and the fact that anybody can take it, which is why I'd want to see stuff like that team play sort of stuff. I think as well in the women's game as well, because the women's game is so skewed to Eastern Asia in terms of the number of top end women coming out of Thailand and Japan. It'd be interesting to see if you do have a mixed, what effect that has as to where the medals start going. So I think that'd be really cool to see as well. But I guess we just have to wait 4 years.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I was going to say on the women's side, I heard someone else say that as well. It's a shame they've done the women's after the men's, because a lot of people don't realise that the women are now happy. They think golf is done.
Yeah. And they did the same with rugby sevens as well. But rugby sevens
with a few, but I don't see why you can't have them going at the same time.
From a logistical perspective, yes, I guess it's a bit more of a challenge.
Yeah.
But I'd want to see the women's game being given an equal chance to shine as much. So if it's a case of you do the women's on the first weekend to really kick it off, and then you do the men's.
Yeah.
Just because at the moment, I imagine the ratings for the women's probably will not be high because everyone thinks the men's is gone, so it's probably all finished now. Where the rugby sevens held its own because it was a time that was very good for Western audiences. Yeah. So when GB was competing against some of the other teams, it worked out really, really nicely from a Western audience perspective.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's a case of making sure that's something that comes across. And I'm sure with what's the next game? Paris.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be some things going into it before then that hopefully they've got 4 years to figure it out, and I'm sure they'll have a look at it if it doesn't get dropped.
Yeah. No, I think there's lots of them things to play with. I don't think it'll get dropped because the Olympic body doesn't need to do much for golf. I think the reason it drops a lot of other sports is because without lots of Olympic funding, they can't continue. So therefore, there's a risk of them including it. Whereas golf, there's very little need.
There's going to be a golf course somewhere. You just have to host.
Yeah. You're not having to build a stadium. You're not having to do that. You just put up some grandstands. And Paris, for example, has the Ryder Cup courses an hour away that was played 3 or 4 years ago. It's got sufficient stuff. Everywhere's going to have something. Yeah.
Yeah, I think unless you see another games in the middle of nowhere where everything has to be built, there'll be infrastructure for it.
And then I reckon they should just, for example, if they went to Dubai, play a top golf tournament.
Do you know what? I think.
Would you not love to see that? Go.
Do you know what?
Do I play safe? Do I go long?
Would you be interested in seeing like a longest drive competition in the Olympics?
See, I saw this, and their argument is very fair. Why is it any different to shot put or javelin or anything that is just pure technique and brute strength? Why is it different?
Because the thing about it, because obviously that, and plus I think that can be something that's quite fun to watch. Because obviously, if you watch one of these long drive competitions, these guys go at it.
I think, but that the only one with that is you'd potentially have to build something for that.
Do you? Do you just have to find a big field?
Just a long stretch of land or a long road. Well, like I said, I think I think it's one of the ones where the long drive circuit is big, but is it big enough to actually have an?
How many athletes? The thing is, you think how many athletes are there? You look, okay. I'm sorry to anyone who does equestrian or like what was the other ones, dressage. How many countries are actually competing in the dressage, right?
In fairness, horse riding's a bad example because it's a massive sport. I mean, but there's other ones that are just like
come on.
Like
how many countries are truly competing in the dressage? Like
more than are doing skateboarding, that's for sure.
Fine, the skateboard is at least a lot more accessible to everyone than going and training a horse to do that.
On a side note, have you seen the video of Kevin Hart and Snoop Dogg commentating on the equestrian?
No.
It is. I'll send you a link. It's amazing. They're doing a voiceover on a horse. And oh, look at them dance, throw on that sad shade. And they're like just commentating on it for like 3 minutes on NBC. But like actually commentating to it live, it's scary. And Snoop Dogg's like,
doesn't make it more entertaining, is what I need to know.
He goes,
there we go. Like, I'm sold. I'm sold.
I need that horse on my next music video. And it's sort of like great to watch.
Stop digging. You found oil.
I'll share a link. That's all you need. Boring sport, better commentators.
So can you share this underneath the YouTube video as well?
Yeah, no, I will. I'll put a link to it. It's class. But obviously, in other news as well, obviously we've got they made the announcements for the upcoming season calendar, a few changes, obviously trying to have it a bit more, I guess, co-ed and co-linked between the US and European tours and adding more joint events. But how would that work, Sehab?
They rock up and they play together, at the same course.
Yeah. Explain it to someone who might not know.
Right. So the European Tour holds events every week.
I tried to tee you up for this. You just weren't prepared.
The European Tour holds events every week. The PGA Tour also holds events every week. Normally, players obviously have to choose which one they're playing in. Sometimes players choose to go off and play in one event or the other. The idea is to give the European Tour guys more exposure as well by allowing them to play in the PGA, because generally the PGA is considered to be a step above, generally. But there's weeks when the PGA Tour is quite weak and European Tour is stronger. I think we've covered that on this channel a number of times as well. But the idea is to give players exposure, give a wider view of the world in the golfing sense as well. It generally creates a slightly bigger pool, but you end up having with the same sort of finish at the end, with one winner ruling it all.
Yeah. Well, like you said, I think it's more, like you said, generally speaking, the PGA is a step above. Generally speaking, that's the kind of the level, and then it's normally, if it's free, someone on the PGA level like Victor Hovland, who's played quite a few European events, even though he's well and truly embedded on the PGA. I think it is just a preference sometime, and if they're playing,
sometimes they've got titles on there that they've won previously that they want to go defend. Yeah. Something that's if there's an event going on in their country that they want to go play, who doesn't want a free trip to Austria every now and again?
Yeah.
By the looks of it, or wherever the European Tour, I will say as well, is not necessarily just a European Tour. It's a lot more global than the PGA Tour in the sense of they do go all around the world. So the European Tour generally kicks off as well with obviously the Middle Eastern stint now, where you kick off in Dubai, and you've got a few more events
outside of Europe.
Yeah, there's quite a few events in Africa.
Yeah,
especially South Africa. There's even one in Australia. So the European Tour is more of a rest of the world sort of situation.
Yeah, which in fairness, and it's why it makes a lot of sense why some of the elite players will do the PGA, because it often requires less travelling, less movement, and often if you base yourself in the US, you're probably going to have a tournament once or twice a month on US soil, so it's fairly safe in that respect, isn't it?
Well, no, not once or twice. I think the WGC is normally the only event on the PGA Tour that goes city to city.
Mm-hmm.
That's obviously that was meant to be held in Mexico, but it was held at the concession this year, I believe.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's coming back. I think it's to St. Jude. Is it St. Jude now?
I think so. Yeah. I saw it. Yeah.
But yeah, so essentially the idea is that you've got a lot more going on. So yeah, it's good. It's good to see them partnering up more, presenting a more unified image.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
See how it goes. Obviously, new season, new year. But then obviously, a lot of the stuff's coming out now. Obviously, build up to the Ryder Cup. Obviously, the course is getting in full swing by the looks of it. A lot of the stands going up, and the teams are coming together pretty much now, aren't they?
Yeah. So with the Ryder Cup, obviously, we're still a month away. I think we're 46 days to be precise. But there's a pretty good idea of who's going to be in the teams. Obviously, there's quite a few rankings to go into it as well for you to be considered. So if everyone doesn't know, European captain Patrick Harrington, very, very experienced guy on tour, won a fair amount, enjoys the match play. Looking like the European team will be consisting of Jon Rahm, Tommy Fleetwood, Tyrrell Hatton, Fitzpatrick, McIlroy, and Hovland, with Paul Casey, Lee Westwood, and Shane Lowry currently in the top 9 spots. And then there's 3 captains' picks that are available as well for the US team. Let's have a look. Switch. Yep. Steve Stricker, captain. He had asked Tiger to come along and be a co-captain, or what was it, like a like just an advisor on site?
Yeah, he just wanted him to be in the management team, didn't he?
Yeah, something like that. The 6 guys that are being slated to be in there at the moment, obviously Colin. I love Colin. Not said enough about him because I was away when he won. Dustin's in there. Bryson. Interestingly, Brooks. It'd be fun to see them on the same team. JT's in there, and fresh off his Olympic gold medal, Xander's in there as well. And then there's a number of captains' picks available for Steve.
Yeah, I think a lot of the captain's picks will be interesting on both sides. I think there's...
Who would you have as a captain's pick on the Americans? Because obviously they've got 3 more generally at the moment that have not been announced.
It depends.
I think the clear one has to be in there is Spieth.
Yeah, I would say Spieth, obviously because of his resurrection recently, but then also he has a very good track record in match play, and he's a crowd pleaser. That's what the Ryder Cup needs.
Do you bring in Reed as well for that reason then?
I bring in Reed because he's bloody good at match play. He knows what he's doing. He's got a good track record on tour. I think those are the 2 obvious ones. I think outside
but then do you not worry about team dynamic already having Bryson in there and Brooks and Reed like that? Surely that's.
I think there's a lot said about team dynamic, but I think at the end of the day, they are never paired with more than 2.
So do you just never? Because the thing is, Reed and Jordan Spieth already hate each other. So the 2 people you're bringing in, you can't pair them together. You can't pair Brooks and Bryson together.
Yeah, but you can pair Reed with Brooks or Bryson. You can pair Spieth with one of them, and then you're fine. Like, I think it's. I genuinely think they will do well because of it. They won't. They will not because they want
the other, I guess.
Yeah, they want to be better than each other, so they're all going to play well. They're all going to get their head down. They're not trying to beat each other, but they are in a way, and I think that will make it hard for the Europeans.
So Spieth and Reed are in. You've got 4 left. Who do you have complete your 4? Do you have someone like a Scheffler, Scotty Scheffler, who's never actually won anything, but he's a good player?
Yeah, I think just it's hard, is it? I think if you're going on form,
Mm.
yeah. But I guess you can make the same argument for like Finau or something potentially.
Yeah.
Always
Finau's not far.
always up there. But then it
Mm.
depends. But then do they go for the old wise dog? Like they could.
You
go.
could bring it. You could bring in Mickelson.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, yeah, do you go for the old dog? Like, it's your options are there, or even someone like Fowler. Like, you've got
No, Fowler's way off it. I would not have him anywhere near the team.
if you want a crowd pleaser, though.
I don't give a damn about a crowd, please. I don't want to win.
Yeah, no, it's tricky. I mean, they've got significantly more options than the Europeans.
They've got more options, but I think they've got more decisions because obviously Europeans, 9 people are pretty much going. There's three you can you've got to go in for.
Yeah.
Obviously Hovland is there, but the name you can have Sergio Garcia, I guess, as your old dog if you want a bit of experience.
Poulter.
You've got Lowry.
Poulter.
Poulter.
Poulter is Mr. Ryder Cup.
He is Mr. Ryder Cup.
But think about.
Or do you bring someone young like Paul McIntyre? He's had a good season.
He really has. He had a very good last tournament as well. But
yeah,
Ryder Cup is so much about crowd and atmosphere. You don't know
He's
how
never actually played in front of a crowd.
McIntyre's come to the Boyle over last year, but never played with a crowd. Poulter loves playing in front of a crowd, and the crowd love him. I think you've got to have a balance, and I think that's.
So would you complete your team out? So you've got 3 spots left as Padraig Harrington. Who do you go with?
Poulter.
Poulter.
Is that not including Victor?
Victor's in there.
Victor's in there. Yeah, so I'd go Poulter. Garcia.
Who's your final one? Who? This is one where you can take a punt.
Is Westwood in?
No.
I'll go Westwood.
It's a very English heavy squad, yours.
That's because I'm English. I'm a fan. That is.
Would you have got Lowry? Well, Westwood's had a very good season, admittedly.
Yeah, let's think. If you're going off form, I think you'd put Westwood in there. If you're going off of Ryder Cup history, you've got Poulter and Sergio's in the match play this year played well. I think it's
with Lowry as well. He's a major winner. What's Westwood won?
Lowry's a one-hit wonder, mate.
He's won a major.
Yeah, did nothing else. He has won a major, but just no.
No. So
I think he's just.
What about Matt Wallace? Bit of a wild card. He's well outside of it, but he could be captain's pick.
Yeah, I think.
Or Victor Perez.
They're both just big wild cards, though. I don't think there's.
Oh, sorry, Westwood is in it. Sorry,
Westwood is in it.
Westwood is in, so you're fine. So you don't have to pick Westwood. Do you have a Perez or a Bob?
No, I'd probably go McIntyre. What's the Scottish boy name?
Bob McIntyre.
Yeah,
Bob.
McIntyre. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's what I just. Yeah, I think if you're going to mix it up, go with
a young god who's going to come in and potentially be one for the future.
Well, and he's the informed one.
Okay.
As well, I think the others are wild cards, but they're wild cards that haven't really performed recently. So it'd be loose.
Do you know what? On the European team, I think I'm agreeing with you. You go Poulter. Sergio's definitely in there for me. Your US team, I think, will be where the storylines come out. I think that'll be the one to watch if you're looking for drama and developments. I think because there's potential for Will Zalatoris ending up in there.
Yeah. So who did we say for the US?
So US.
If we pick,
guys,
let's say 3, who would we pick? 3 definitely captain's picks. Who would we say?
Spieth definitely has to be in there for me.
Reed,
and I'd be inclined to put
well, we said Finau, Zalatoris. You've got
Billy Herschel's, got Scheffler, Jason Kokrak. Yeah. Danny Berger, Patrick Cantlay.
Billy's played well. Cantlay's played.
Yeah. They've got a lot of options.
They've got, in terms of outside of your guaranteed 6, they've got significantly more options.
Even Sam Burns, he's had a couple of wins. Max Homer
recently as well.
Do you know what? I would go Mickelson.
Or Mickelson. But then Scheffler was the one that got to the final of the match play as well, wasn't he? So he's good with the match play.
Yeah. So I would go Mickelson. I would go Mickelson because he's been there, done it before.
Yeah.
And he likes having a crowd. He likes having a bit of a moment.
Yeah.
And I think he like he did with the major. I think he'd be wanting to go out on a high.
Yeah. Fine. The reason I ask, I will do a couple of Instagram posts and polls about our selection and what people think.
Cool.
Mix up.
Ooh, content, guys.
Snazzy. Well, there you go. Before we end, winner for the women's at the Olympics.
I don't know who's competing. I've not looked how.
Well, in fairness, that backs up our theory in one way or another that the women's has been overshadowed. Where you've got,
I probably should have looked. I'll be honest. But...
Well, you've got Sagström's winning, obviously the Swede, and then you've got Nelly Korda from the US is in second at the moment. So yeah, I'm gonna
have a look and I'm gonna pick my pick.
They're the two names. If fairness, I'd probably go Nelly Korda just because if you're going form for this year so far in terms of the women's game, she's pretty much been there or thereabouts the whole time. So I'd say she looks a fairly sensible pick and 2 solid round of 67 to start. Solid.
Yeah, you've gone. Okay, so you've taken the safe pick.
Well, no, this isn't counting towards our table. I'm just saying who are we?
Oh, okay.
Who are we thinking?
Cool.
Yeah.
I like S.Y. Kim.
Yeah, it's been playing very well as well.
Yeah. So. This again, the safe pick. I back at the middle because it's the top 3. You don't have to pick. You don't have to pick a winner. But I think experience at the end of the line will be helpful.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. I think. Obviously, the Swede's leading at the moment, Sagström, but obviously in terms of...
I've never heard of her before.
That's why I think she's had a very good round. But if you've got Korda coming up and Kim and all of those like the seasoned winners and tour veterans, well, they're not veterans, are they? But they've been around significantly longer.
I want to say there's not been as many of the top women's competing in the women's golf as compared to the men's.
I'd say no, there hasn't, but there is significantly more people at a top level in the men's than there is the women's. So if 10 drop out from the men, you've still got a very good pool. 10 drop out for the women, you've decreased that massively. I think that's the reason.
Yeah.
So
no,
rather than it being another way.
So here's our message to the IOC. Please do mixed events. It'd be really, really cool. Do match play. That'd be even cooler. And if we can, bring in a long drive competition.
Yes, do something.
Make it interesting.
Well, there you go. Well, thanks, guys, for listening. Obviously, stay tuned for much more to come. And we'll see you soon.